Today it's time to take a diversion away from Dunwall and onto a topic that has been swimming around my noggin for a few days. You see, I've been playing a lot of Tarkov. It's had a wipe recently, getting rid of all progression, and the amount I was playing it, I really wanted to get to the bottom of why I was enjoying the game. There are a few things that would traditionally put me off this type of game. Firstly, it's a military sim, a genre that can honestly appear like it is just play acting a power fantasy with lots of guns, but I'm wise enough to not chalk it up to just that. There may be other things I'm missing here. I'm very new to the genre, and I only have a small window of intuition. Even with that in mind, this is not a game I would normally go for, but there's something immensely compelling about the game. I want to stop my Dishonored 2 playthrough and be playing this right now. I might even switch off the mic and do that. Another element of it I would find off-putting is the gun attachment system. You can customise your guns to have all sorts of different attachments. Every aspect of them is changeable, in what I assume is a very realistic way, but for the developers to put it in the game, it almost comes across as pornographic. Even with this though, it does not have the same chest beating that a Call of Duty would have. It does not feel like it sells combat particularly as a positive, not overtly anyway. Instead it slows everything down and makes it more lethal. It almost comes across as measured. It is worth noting that even though they have avoided the chest beating thing that I was talking about from Call of Duty, they do refuse to include female combatants, supposedly for law reasons, although it just seems political on their part. So with all these elements that I would potentially find off-putting, it's led me to interrogate the enjoyment I was getting, and also to think about other games I have felt compelling in the last few years. What games have been the ones I want to spend the most time with, or still sit in my head to this day? Now this is by no means a comprehensive list, but I noticed a good chunk have an element in common. They all use knowledge as a form of progression. At this stage I think it's probably wise that we look at what we mean by progression in games, and talk about a couple of forms it can take. A lot of games have a series of goals for you to work through. This can be killing a certain amount of monsters for experience, collecting the 5 runes of Thingamabob, or any other particular way a game chooses to move your character forward. This will often be systematised with experience. Your character gets better because they did X task for a certain amount of time, and now we get to level up and become more powerful. It is a way to represent progression that we would get doing normal tasks, i.e. getting better at cooking the more you do it. There are many ways games have done this type of progression, and although these are individually different, for the sake of expediency, I want to chalk this up as one type of progression. Unlike this, there is also knowledge as progression. Knowledge as a barrier is interesting to me. It is something that exists outside the systems the developers have built, and instead is held within us. For instance, in Tarkov, map knowledge is probably one of the key things that is going to be slowing you down initially. In fact, I can prove this out. There recently has been a wipe of all experience on all accounts. But, firstly, let's outline what this game is. To put it simply, it's Stalker meets Diablo meets Armour. You are loaded into a fake Russian post-apocalyptic town with other players and some hostile NPCs. You are here for loot. You move throughout the area gathering items that you can use to upgrade yourself. Another form of progression, in the form of gear. All of this is done through the veil of a simulation style shooter, one where you are quick to die, has minimal UI, and has a horde of different bullets to choose from in each caliber. So one of the forms of progression here is loot you are gathering, used to upgrade your kit and getting an edge in combat. There are also these small level ups you gain for using certain skills, increasing your sprint distance or the such. These are all systematised progression, arbitrary in some ways, but we're not here for that. We're here for knowledge. You see, the maps are large in Tarkov, at least to a new player, with time limits that are getting close to an hour, and some plan to be even longer. This paired up with a minimal UI creates a question of how to leave with all your loot. There is no marker, just a box giving you a list of extracts. Well, with some knowledge you can learn that some extracts need an item to use, or have certain limitations. Others are available at all times. There is nothing pointing to this or where they are. You need to learn and internalise this very basic thing. Honestly, it could be something that's shown in the game a bit more, but instead it feels like the best way to get this information is outside of the game. This is also true of the best loot locations. Where are the high traffic areas? Where are the best vantage spots? You are mainly building a knowledge base of all these things as you play. So going back to the wipe. This removes all of the things the games count as progression on a systemic level, such as experience levels and gear. But it does not remove your knowledge. Sure, there probably have been some map changes, some item changes, but your ability to find the things you need mostly stays intact. These are the things that will tell you where is best to go, and even the knowledge to know that those gunshots aren't next to you and you don't need to jump out your seat. It all counts. Before the wipe I was at about level 5, I think it took me about 15 hours to get there. I've reached that in about half the time post-wipe. I know this will be slow to some, but I'm happy with my achievement. I do think it helps that even having the highest tier of loot does not make you invulnerable, and even someone lower level with the right knowledge can beat you, or at least knows to run away. A completely different game that fits the bill also is Outer Wilds. I want to talk about it now, but I will try to do so as vaguely as possible, and any video is going to be from one planet, so it should not show too much. The reason I'm being careful is a lot of what you learn in this game is not only inherent to the story, it's inherent to progression, and I would rather not spoil anything. In fact, I bet knowledge would trim the game down from about a 20-hour playthrough to a couple of hours, without the mechanical skills a speedrun would take. Basically every gate to progression is knowledge in this game, knowledge of how the world works. I am going to outline the very basics of the game, as I think it is required to talk about it, but it is for sure worth going to play this game without too much knowledge. You are set out to explore a space system with multiple planets, each with its own cohesive mechanics. It does not tell you much, but it points you in the direction of going to explore. As you are doing this exploring, the sun explodes. Yep, kills everything, and you wake up and start again. Grab your ship and head back out into space. You see, from the very start there is an inevitable truth. In 20 minutes or so, the sun is going to explode, but luckily you are stuck in a time loop, going back to the start each time. A puzzle to solve. This paired with a world where you can feasibly go pretty much anywhere, the only thing stopping progression is knowing how to beat the puzzle. There is no key or level cap to get where you need to go, just knowing where, why and how. And this paired with the time travel element means you can keep trying to move forward. It's engaging to have your own mad red string room, connecting all sorts of individual items, trying to figure out what's going on in the world. It's brilliant. I want to do a couple of other quick shout outs that I think work in this realm, and that is any Paradox game and the Soul series. One has so many systems that knowledge is a gateway to some basic elements of play, and the other asks you to know the world, monsters and systems to be able to move forward. They don't fully fit the bill of only knowledge, but I don't think many games do. Both are immensely fun, but take some getting used to. One last thing I want to touch on, that we briefly mentioned earlier, is speedruns. They are fascinating in this category of knowledge as progression, because what they essentially do is remove all other barriers to progression, intentional or otherwise, with knowledge. It is taking an object and repurposing it from how the developers saw it working into a challenge with one measure: how quick is it played? It muddies some of the definitions. Knowledge is rarely the only thing at work, but it can be used to remove some intentional progression blocks. In conclusion, there is something about tuning into a stream or watching a video and seeing a game and seeing all the potential things I will have to learn to move forward. This paired with actually tackling some of these games for the first time has taught me a level of patience, learning that mistakes are normal, and that even if you only come out a smidge better than last time, it's still productive. As a counterpoint, I do think games have a much higher chance of getting boring quickly if they are predictable. For me anyway. If I can see in front of me the mechanical and narrative possibility space, I can become frustrated and tune out. You already know where it's going to go, but if there's surprises I will keep coming back. Thank you for watching today. If you could do all the usuals down below, I would appreciate it. My name's been Billy. Goodbye.